Money Management Center. My name is Adrian Ramirez, and I'm here with Mike Jones from Educational Employees Credit Union, EECU, our local community bank. And we really appreciate him being here today. He's going to be talking to us about investing for a brighter future. And just to let everyone know, I know people were expecting the retirement one from Wells Fargo, but unfortunately we had a last minute cancellation. But however, we got a great person such as Mike here with financial knowledge as well to give us information related to investing and saving for your future as well. So that's why we're doing the webinar today with EECU. So thank you, Mike. Appreciate you being here today, and we look forward to hearing from you about your presentation. And I want to let everyone know that I'll be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions or any comments or things you'd like to bring up to Mike while he's speaking, definitely let me know, and I'll go ahead and interject and ask Mike to answer the question if possible, and we'll go from there. So thank you, Mike, and let's get started.
Fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I believe that they're going to record the workshop, just so that you all know. So yes, my name is Mike Jones, and I work for Educational Employees Credit Union, and we are interested in you investing for your future. So hopefully you can all see the PowerPoint. So the objective today is to know what they are talking about. Okay, who's they? The investing industry. They have a language all their own. They use words and phrases that we might be familiar with, we might not be familiar with. Maybe we've heard them and we think we know what they are, but we're not as familiar as we wish we were. So we're going to talk about that. So most of the workshop is going to be developing that language of the investors. Then every time that you see something on the news about investing, when you have the language down, you then understand what's going on and your knowledge builds. Every time you hear something on a podcast, on a radio, on a YouTube channel, on whatever, as you hear them talking about the investment, if you already have the lingo down, then you are able to increase your knowledge. We're going to talk about a well-rounded portfolio, understand retirement accounts, and how soon do I get rich? The rule of 72 and the rule of 115. So let's start off with talking about what is a stock. This is Joe. Joe owns a company. He started the company, he built it up, it's doing fantastic, and he decided that he's going to sell stock in this company. And I'll explain what that is as we go along. So he creates, it's called issues, but he creates 10,000 shares of stock. So think of it as 10,000 pieces of paper, even though they don't do it on paper anymore. It's all digital these days. Think of it as 10,000 pieces of paper where it has the company name on it, and it says stock, and it says what the owner of that stock is entitled to. He's going to sell each one for $100, and he sells all 10,000 shares. Okay, so 10,000 times $100 is $1 million. Joe just made $1 million. However, he no longer owns the company because he sold all of the stock. We'll touch more on that in just a moment. So the people that purchase the stock, they're going to establish a board of directors from people that own stock. And if they're smart, they might be able to arrange for Joe to be the manager of the company. He's done a great job, so he could be an employee. When I buy stock, I am an owner of that company. If I buy stock in McDonald's Corporation, I am an owner of McDonald's along with everybody else that has purchased stock in McDonald's. If I buy stock in Ford Motor Company, I am an owner of Ford Motor Company along with everybody else that buys a share or more of stock in Ford Motor Company. So as we go along with the description of what it is that we're talking about, I'm going to give an AKA, also known as, a couple words or a phrase that describes in very simple terms what's happening here. So when I buy stock, I am an owner. This is Deborah. Deborah, just like Joe, started a company and it's doing well. And just like Joe, she decides to sell stock. Just like Joe, she creates 10,000 shares and she's going to sell them for $100 each. Now, is there any magic to why I'm saying 10,000 shares and $100? No. I just want the math to be easy while we do the struggling with the concepts. So you want to learn the concepts without having to do math, okay? So that's why I'm doing real round numbers, 10,000 shares, $100. Now, Deborah sells 4,999 shares of stock. She keeps 5,001 shares in her name. So she made a lot less than Joe. She made $499,900. But Deborah still owns a majority of the company because she owns 5,001 shares. There are times in a corporation when the stockholders have to vote on certain things. And if you own 1 share of stock, you get 1 vote. If you own 2 shares of stock, you get 2 votes. If you own 10 shares, you get 10 votes. So how many shares does Deborah get? Deborah gets 5,001 votes out of a total 10,000 votes. Who's going to always win the vote? Deborah. So that's one main reason why somebody who is a sole proprietor, they are the sole owner of a company, that they might want to keep just over half of the stock, is because they then still have control, complete control of the company. Deborah Incorporated. Yes,
Mike,
please.
before you move on from stocks, I have a couple questions from students asking. So, a student asked about the price of stocks. Are they usually the same price, or you gave the example of $100?
I gave it the example of $100 just so that the math is easy, but they are all over the place. There's what's called penny stock. So they're probably not a penny, but they might only be a few dollars. There's stock that's several $100s per share. So it all depends on what somebody else is willing to buy that stock for. And I'm glad you're thinking about that, because there's a whole part of the presentation coming up that's going to specifically address the price of stock. So that's a good question. And I'm going to have you hold on. I'm going to tease you for just a little bit. So hold on. We're going to get.
And then another question that was brought up was about, what platforms are good to be using when you start looking at investing for stock and stuff. I don't know if they meant what types of industrial averages, or what types of like Robinhood or other platforms to actually start investing and looking at doing your own personal stocks and stuff.
Right. So there's several things built into that question. So one of the things is what platform to look at. If the platform has the information that you're looking for and it is built in a way that is pleasing to your mind and eye, then that's a good platform. Whether that's, something along with Kiplinger's, or that's MSN, or that's, something else, that great, okay? And you can research the different stocks. When you're looking at a platform in order to buy individual stocks or bonds, you want to take a look at, is there a fee for being registered for that platform? Is there a monthly fee? Is there a fee for buying? Of course, there's going to be some sort of fee for purchasing and buying and selling stock. And how much is that fee? So you do want to take a look at the different platforms. However, the question that isn't asked, but really is asked in your question is, should I be buying stocks and bonds myself, or should I be utilizing an expert, an advisor to do that? Now, my personal preference is that I have 2 investment advisors for the 2 main parts of my retirement accounts. And they do all of the buying and selling. They do all of the tweaking, changing of the investments, so that they know their business. And yes, do they get paid? They do. They get paid out of the proceeds. So it's a really good deal. I do have another platform, an E-Trade platform that I use, that I play around with. I mean, it's so minimal of what I have in there. that, you know, if it all went away, I would not be happy, but it would be pretty darn minor. And I do that to play. That is not where my investments truly are. So be careful about your expert level, right? So you really do need to know what you're doing if you're going to do the buy and sell yourself. Okay,
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for that.
my pleasure. Deborah Incorporated has decided that they're going to borrow money. They need to buy some equipment, and they're going to borrow $500,000. But instead of going to a bank and borrowing that from a bank, they're going to go to a bunch of people and borrow little bitty pieces of money from each one of those. So she creates something called a bond. So again, think of it as a piece of paper, even though it's digital now. Think of it as a piece of paper that has the company name and it says bond on it, and it says what that holder of that bond is entitled to. This is a loan, and she's going to have to pay this back. And I say she, actually the corporation now is going to have to pay it back. She's going to sell each one for $100. She sells 5,000 of them, so she gets the $500,000. So when you are buying a bond, you're actually a lender. I buy a bond, let's say I buy a US savings bond. I am loaning money to the US government. I buy a municipal bond here in Fresno County. I am loaning money to the municipality of Fresno County. I buy a bond to a corporation. Some company is selling bonds. I am loaning money to that company. So when I buy a stock, I am an owner. When I buy a bond, I am a lender. And Adrian, feel free to break in at any time if there are questions. Okay, stocks and bonds go up and down, right? You guys have seen this on the news. The Dow is up, the Dow is down. What did individual stocks and bonds do within that whole range? So let's pretend that you had 1 year ago $300 to invest in one of these companies, McDonald's, Sony, Dell, Toyota, or Ford. Which one of these companies would you invest, would have invested your $300 in? Go ahead and put your ideas in the chat, and Adrian is going to call those out for us so we can kind of see what people are thinking. That you're going to invest in one company, $300. Which one would you invest
All right. We got a couple Sonys, McDonald's, one Toyota, and two more Toyotas now. Dell. Everyone likes them all. They're hitting them all. A lot of Sonys are coming up now. Dell, Toyota, Sony. Yep, they're all spread out their money in all of them. So, but they have to invest, like you said, in one. Real quick, Mike, before I forget, there was a question about does EECU have that, what you were talking about, the professional individuals to help with investing and stuff like that?
We sure do, yes. And today is not meant as a commercial, but since you asked, I will go ahead and let you know that you can contact us at any time and set up an appointment with one of our investment advisors. They are all licensed, certified investment advisors, and they can sit down with you and talk about your investment goals, how much risk you want or don't want, and set up several options for you to choose from. So yes, and that is, I have two advisors, one for my retirement through my job, and then I have all of my other retirement income. I know that gets confusing, but basically two pots, and I heavily use our EECU advisors. I'm set up with one, have that relationship, and that person and I go over my investments annually, if not more often. So yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll give you the number kind of towards the end of the presentation. If you want it now, it's 1-800-538-3328. I always take a look at the pins to make sure I say the number right. 1-800-538-3328. But again, this is not intended as a commercial. But I do recognize that anytime I'm in front of you with my logo on, it's a bit of a commercial.
Real quick, before you move on to the different stocks there, a student's asking, will $300 be an appropriate amount to start investing in companies that you listed? Some companies can be expensive to invest, especially as a newcomer, right?
It doesn't matter whether you're a newcomer or not, investing in some of these companies is very expensive. And I am just kind of doing it as an example so that you can see what goes up and down. Because again, these companies are well known. You're not going to get their stocks cheap. Doesn't mean that a share is going to be $300, but it could be. And when I started investing at $50 a month. Now that was too little. However, that was also a long time ago, and $50 was worth more than it is today. So yeah, you can definitely start with $50 a month. You can start with $100 a month because you're going to build. And so we're going to talk about that as well as we go through. It's called dollar cost averaging. So these are all fantastic questions, and it shows you guys are really thinking. I appreciate that.
Yeah, they're really thinking like you mentioned risks when you were talking, Mike. And so one student's asking about what do you mean by risk? And then does one go in debt with stocks?
No, do not know. As a matter of fact, the whole Great Depression stopped that from happening. So no, you do not go in. Well, I mean, you can go borrow money and invest it in the stocks, but don't do that. Okay, don't go borrow money and invest it in the stock market. But I'm going to hold off on it because I've got slides on answering every one of your questions. So you guys are fantastic. You're just ahead of the game. So these companies, so I'm going to talk about 6 months ago when I first looked these up. So 6 months ago versus what they were 1 year before that, and then what they were last week compared to 1 year ago. So 6 months ago when I looked them up, McDonald's over the course of 12 months, so a year and a half ago to 1/2 a year ago now, McDonald's had gone down 9.45%. Now that is amazing for McDonald's because even through the Great Recession, 2008 through, 9, 10, 11, McDonald's didn't go down because while you couldn't afford a lot of things, you could always afford the dollar menu. So they went down. That was a surprise. I guess kind of that whole lockdown thing, it took people a while to figure out that they could actually go to drive-through or something, but they definitely went down. Their stock went down. Sony went up over that year, 44%. Dell went up 8.79, Toyota down 3.29, and Ford, oh my goodness, Ford went down 34.02. But again, that was about 6 months ago. So what happened most recently? So most recently, if we're looking at December 3rd, 2019 to December 2nd, 2020, look, McDonald's, there's a 18, really almost 19-point shift right there in McDonald's. They went from -9% to +9%. Sony, they're still up. Dell, wow, Dell was up some. They were up a ton. Toyota, they're still down, but not as much. And then Ford went from a -34 to, gosh, they're in the positive. Not a lot, but you can see how it swings. So stocks go up and down. Okay, I think you had a couple questions come in. I can see them flashing. Any questions for us before we move on?
Oh, one student was commenting why he invested all his money in Sony because of the product launch of the PS5, which is the new product that they had. And one question was just asking what was the phone number because Damien posted the number that you mentioned. So I just let the student know that it's the number to EECU in case they want to contact them.
Yes, and that number works for checking on your checking account, savings account, saying you want an appointment with an investment advisor to apply for a loan. I mean, that's just our general 800 number. It gets you everywhere. Okay, you guys may have heard the term, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So that goes back to old days when pretty much everybody lived on farms and every morning you would go out and you get the eggs and you put it in a basket. And if you dropped the basket of eggs, you had no eggs that day. No eggs, no fresh bread, no biscuits, no anything that eggs go in. There's no store just around the corner back in those days. So that was quite devastating. So if you could like separate them out, that way if something happened to just part of them, then you still have the other part. Okay, you're diversifying where your assets are so that if something happens to one group of assets, you still have the other assets. See how we use this term for investments? You have assets, you have cash, you have a paycheck, you have income, you're putting money into investments. That's an asset, and you don't want to put it all in one basket because what if something happens to that basket? So that's the term of diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread the risk. Spread the risk. So far we know that stocks, I am an owner. Bonds, I am a lender. Diversification is spread the risk. If I put all of my money in IBM stock, I am not diversified. But if I put some of it in IBM, and IBM used to be known as like the best stock out there. Now that was before they had any competitors. That was before they had Dell and Sony and HP and et cetera, et cetera. So I put some of it in IBM, some in other US stock called domestic stock, some international stock, some oil and natural reserve, and some government bonds. Okay, now I'm diversified, right? Let's talk about mutual funds, because really the majority of what most of you will probably do with investing is invest in mutual funds. In the mutual funds, the AKA is we can do more together. And let me describe that for you. Let's say that I have $100 and I want to invest in stock A, and stock A is $100. Fantastic, I'm happy. But what if I also want to invest in stock B and it's $50? Well, I only have $100. I can't do both. So one of you comes along with me and you bring $100, and so we buy one of stock A and we buy two of stock B, and we're in this agreement, this arrangement together, and we're hoping that the values go up and we can make money, hooray, and we get more people in and we can buy stock C, D, E, we bring lots of people in and we can buy all of these. Okay, that's a mutual fund. In a mutual fund, you can see that when it was just stock A and B, I didn't own all of one share of stock B. I only owned half. Okay, what if I only owned a little bitty bit because my money is spread throughout a bunch of stocks and bonds? So that's a mutual fund. Now, you don't have to go find a bunch of people to start a mutual fund. You just buy into the mutual fund. It's like, hey, I'm buying, a share of this mutual fund, which actually is lots of little bitty pieces of these other stocks and bonds. The mutual fund is run by a professional mutual fund organization, a brokerage house. You have a professional manager that is hired, and his or her job is to manage that mutual fund. So there's not a whole lot that you have to worry about other than buying in or selling out. Those are your choices. And you can continually buy in a little bit more every month or as often as you want. So you can see how we can do more. We can invest in more things, a broader range, a more diverse range of stocks and bonds by going into a mutual fund. So really, by definition, a mutual fund is at least somewhat diversified, depending on the types of stocks and bonds that are in there. Some kind of go along some industries, some are spread broadly throughout many industries. But when you go into most of your retirement investment options, tons and tons and tons of them are mutual funds. Okay, portfolio. What is a portfolio? A portfolio is just all my investments. So think of it as a list of everything. So when you think of maybe a portfolio, if there's a model, they might have, when they're going to an interview, they might take with them a portfolio, and it's a case right? That has pictures of all their different photos. If you think of, back in middle school, we used to call it junior high, we had to have a portfolio, which was a folder for every class, and it just carried all the stuff for that class. So my investment portfolio is just a list of all of my investment stuff. So if you hear that they talk about some rich person like Warren Buffett, and they say Warren Buffett's portfolio consists of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, you know what they're talking about, right? It's a list of his investment items. So if my portfolio is, and this is all just made up stuff, a 401k, which is a retirement, an IRA, traditional, and Roth, which are retirements, real estate, gold bars, and a work of art, right? Then that is just a list of my investment items. It's my portfolio. If I buy a stock, a whole bunch of them, I buy a stock at 10,000 shares, pardon me, $10,000. I buy a bunch of shares. And then later I sell it for $15,000. I have made $5,000. That's profit. They also call that capital gains. So why do they call it capital gains instead of profit? Because the investment industry has their own language, and they just do. So capital gains is profit. And you can probably figure out what capital loss is, right? Yeah, it's not good. So I think a couple questions may have came in. I can't see the chat, but I can see.
No, that's fine, Mike. I appreciate it. So let's see the one that's a little bit easier on that list of the portfolio. You had the Roth IRA. What do you mean by Roth IRA?
I'm so glad you asked. I got a slide coming up to show you.
Okay, perfect. We'll wait for that one. And then there's one about like fake investments and investors and things. How do you know if like scammers and people say that they have like, fake, I have some money you can put in and you'll get this much return and all that. How do you protect yourself from that?
Right. Oh, that is such an excellent question. There are tons of fake investments out there. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are investing through a reputable organization. If somebody is approaching you and say, hey, invest in my company, it's like, whoa, who are you? And how did you get my name? How did you get my number? How did you get my email address, my text message? Okay, all of that is very shaky, questionable stuff. Maybe you're searching on the internet and it's like, ooh, this looks good. But time. You need to, if you're going to be doing buying of individual stocks and bonds yourself, you need to go through a reputable site. And I'm not necessarily pushing E-Trade, but they're really well known out there. So I'll just use them as an example, such as E-Trade, so that you know that you are buying through a already reputable site. I strongly recommend that you don't go after these individual companies through their own company site. Go through a reputable company like an E-Trade or etc. But even more than that, I would really like to see you get in front of an investment advisor, an investment counselor, so that they steer you in the right direction and they're doing the buys for you. A couple more questions came in.
Sorry, I was muted there for a second. Are there limited amount of stocks available at any given time, and who do you sell them back to?
Right. So, stocks can just be privately sold, but I mean that's a whole different scenario, and I am not even well versed on that. I am not an investment advisor. I am an educator. Okay, so I can educate you on the generalities, but for the specific advice, on what to buy, it would need to be an advisor. Okay, so when you go and you're like, okay, I want to buy, McDonald's, so you can just go into E-Trade and click on McDonald's and buy. There are some times when a stock is no longer offered. It's like, nope, we're not offering anymore out there. Nobody is selling. Sometimes a company might be buying the stock back, right? They're trying to to lower the number of people that are owners. And so they're constantly buying back stock and they're not selling any out there. So all of that is a reality. But pretty much most of you are going to, and I know I've said this a couple times, that most of you are going to be investing in mutual funds. And that's not a problem. You just invest in the mutual fund and they take care of the rest of it.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so let's talk about what a stock is worth, because that question came up. Any product at all, whether it's a stock, whether it's a bond, whether it's a gallon of milk, whether it's your bicycle that you're selling on the internet, or whatever, any product is worth what somebody else is willing to pay for it, period. When you go to the grocery store tonight and you buy a gallon of milk, it is valued at what they estimate you're willing to pay. It's put out there for that. And if the demand goes down, they're going to lower their price. It's like, oh, maybe more people will be willing to buy it at a lower price. If the demand goes up, they're like, okay, well, maybe I can make a little bit more money by having it be a little bit more expensive. I'm still running out of product, so it's all good, right? That's basic marketing, and you guys can learn that in your classes, like I did at Fresno State. So let's say that I buy a stock and it's $152 per share, and I put a bunch of money. I buy a lot of shares of these, and it's in an agricultural company here in the Valley. And suddenly there's a bug that comes and destroys that crop. Okay, is that current price of that stock going to stay at $152 per share? Well, until I have to sell it, who knows, right? Oh my gosh, something happens in my life. My ex-wife needs some money. I need to sell this stock. I know that I can't get $152 per share for it. I sell it for whatever I can. I find somebody, I really don't have to find them. I just put it out there for sale and they tell me what I'm getting for it. And I get $25 per share on that stock. Okay, why would somebody be willing to buy a stock of an agricultural company where the crop has been eaten up, even at the reduced price of $25? Why would they be willing to do that? Somebody give some suggestions in chat. I see some suggestions.
People are saying buy low because they do it. It's a future potential to resell it when it goes back up, to make their own crops when it goes up. Buy low and sell high concept. It'll eventually grow back. It'll grow because they have to overcome it, and it'll eventually go up.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. So if you know that the company, that this agriculture company is a stable company, that they're taking some hits, but if they can make it through this, they've got reserves, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They've got the plans for what happens if, right? They have all these contingencies in place. You know that they're going to make it through this, then they can replant. They can get rid of the infestation, they can replant, and then your stock goes from $25 a share to 50 to 100, 150, 200, who knows, right? So you're all correct. Buy low, sell high. Excellent. There are times in our economy where the stocks, and we're talking about the aggregate. So if you add up all of the stocks that they're looking at, not an individual stock, but the stock market is basically flat. So you take a look here from 71 to 82, it's basically flat. I know that's before any of you were even born. And it was definitely before I was old enough, sort of, to invest. So you can see that there's up and down, but from beginning to end, it's flat. And then from 82 to 99, wow, there are some times when it went down, you can see in there, but definitely from beginning to end, it went up. And then 2000 to 2002, boy, up and down, up and down, up and down, but definitely on and down. From 2002 to 2008, just, it did go up quite drastically. quite a bit, and then you know what happened in 2008. I mean, it just plunged. So, but it came back, within, several years, but it came back. So asset allocation. So like I said, when we talked about diversification, you have an asset, you have money, whether it's out of your paycheck every month, whether it's out of a savings account, whether it's out of some other type of investment that you're moving over into the stocks, bonds, mutual funds. It's an asset. An asset allocation is deciding where to put your money. So when I said you had $300 a year ago in one of those companies, you were deciding where to put your asset of $300. You were deciding where to allocate that asset. And let's look at three different asset allocations. And it's based on your risk tolerance. So this goes into, again, somebody's question. What is risk tolerance? There are people who they're like, hey, look at this stock. And it has the potential of like going boom, way up. And it has the potential of going boom, way down. And okay, it might go way back, okay, and up and down and up and down. Okay, that would be considered a high risk. You never quite know what's going on. So right now, maybe the travel industry, I'm just throwing something out there, maybe the travel industry is considered a high risk. Who knows what's going to happen, right? Are you able to buy low right now on the travel industry stock? Because, as soon as everything gets better on the pandemic, then people are really going to go on to travel, or are some of them not going to make it, right? So that, there's some risk there, right? So that could be a high risk. And that's just one example. There are other people, they're like, oh, no, I don't like risk. I want low risk, slow, steady, little gain. So maybe that's going to be a US savings bond. You're not going to lose money. You're not going to make much. You will make some. It's going to be slow. It's going to be steady. Right? There's little chance. I mean, the U.S. government would have to disappear before you lost money on a U.S. savings bond. And then there are people that are somewhere in the middle. Okay, a little up, a little down, medium gains, medium losses, but I know over the long run it's going to become okay. I kind of look at it like Goldilocks and the Three Bears and the porridges. Some people like their porridge, their soup, caliente. They want it hot, right? Some want it really cool, and some are in the middle. Now, where you are in this is based on your personality. It's also based on your age, because right now, at a younger age, if you are at a younger age, you can probably take some risk. Hey, I can invest in these places. I know the stock might go up and down, but the company is solid enough that over the long term, I'm looking for it to go way up. Because the higher risk, the higher the potential benefit. The lower the risk, the lower the benefit. Okay, so I
All
see
right.
somebody raise their hand.
Yeah. So there's a couple questions actually related. I was waiting until you finish, Mike. Is there a specific age requirement to start buying stocks or investing? That's one question. The other question has to deal with most students, are living paycheck to paycheck, but they kind of like the fact what you're talking about, starting out early and investing and putting money aside. What's a good number to put away? So I know you said you were going to talk about dollar cost averaging a little bit. So
Right. So age. Okay, if you're under 18, there are some limitations. I do know some parents that are investing for the sake of their children, and then they'll just like transfer that all over at the point that the child becomes 18. But yeah, definitely at 18, your whole bunch of options are open to you. For the specifics of what can and can't happen at those ages, I'm going to refer you over to an investment advisor. What was the second part of that? Sorry, Adrian.
like how much to get started in investing? What's a good number? Like you said, $50 back when you were younger, but
Right. So when I was in my early 30s, and I should have started before that, I started at $50 a month. I should have started at 100. But what it comes down to is, what do you have? And I do recommend a slow, methodical, every month investing. And so let's talk about that. So by the way, risk tolerance, How much risk are you willing to accept in order to get the best result? Okay, so let me talk about stocks going up and down again, okay? Let's say that right now you have $1,000 and you're going to invest it in one of these companies. Now, I know I've already told you to diversify, and I'm breaking that rule, but I'm just breaking that rule so that I can drive the point home, though. So would you invest the $1,000 right now in Zoom, or would you invest it in Planet Fitness? Go ahead and give your suggestions in the chat.
Everyone's putting Zoom. A lot of Zooms on here. One Planet Fitness that I saw. Oh, a couple now, but mostly Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah. And then real quick, I know you're going to ask why, but questions on other chat questions before I forget, because they're up higher now. Annuities. Are you going to talk about annuities? And then yeah, these are specific questions.
You need to talk to an investment advisor. If you're going to have to talk about investment advisors, pardon me, about annuities, we need to get you in front of somebody.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so 6 months ago when I started looking at this, so from like July 2019 to June, July 2020, Zoom had gone up 168% over that year, and Planet Fitness had gone down 21%. Okay, I looked them up last week again. And see, 6 months ago in my head is like, don't bother to invest in Zoom because look, I've already missed the bubble. It went up 168%. Investing in Zoom would be silly now because, you know, there's no place for it to go up. Wow, I should have invested in Zoom. Because from December of 2019 to last week, Zoom has still gone up to 489% increase. Goodness gracious. I wish I even knew about Zoom a year ago. I knew about online platforms like this. I did not ever investigate the different platforms. Didn't have the crystal ball that this was coming about. Wish I did. Planet Fitness, they've recovered a little bit, you know, good on them. So, you know, remember that what happened over the last 12 months is not as important as what might happen over the next 12 months. So why would you invest in one or the others? You know, you might be looking at Zoom and going, this is still a good investment because it is still going to go up. Or you might be saying, I've already missed the bubble, don't bother. Well, I have no idea. Do not take what I'm saying as a crystal ball because I obviously I'm still working for a living. I don't have a crystal ball. Planet Fitness, somebody might say, oh, you know, I'm not so sure Planet Fitness is going to make it through this. Their company is going to, like, you know, be bankrupt. Or somebody might go, hey, no, Planet Fitness is going to make it and I can get it on sale right now. Your choice, right? I have no idea. But these are the things you might want to consider. I'm going to touch on 401k and 403b lightly because I know there's some things that in my slides coming up that are going to answer some of your questions. So you've heard of a 401k. Some of you will go to work for employers that have this as an option where money comes out of your paycheck every month and they might be matching part of it. You can put more in than what they're matching. Fantastic. But if this is an option for you, please participate because they're giving you free money. A 403b is very similar to that, but it's for people that work for a nonprofit. So they work for a university, a college, maybe they work for a local school district, or maybe a community hospital or other type of nonprofit. That nonprofit might or might not be able to match funds, but on a 401k, typically there's some matching being done there. An IRA. Oh, by the way, let me back up. I have a 401k. Now, it goes into this fund, and I get to talk to the investment advisor about what that's in. It could be in a savings account. It could be in a mutual fund, and it actually is a mutual fund in my case. And so I talk to them about what type of mutual fund, the things that I am happy with, not happy with. I don't like certain industries. I like certain industries. You know, please keep me out of this type of risk. I tell them how much risk I'm willing to take, and they give a suggestion and advice on what to invest in, and then they do that investing for me. So it makes it very simple for me. An IRA, individual retirement account. There's traditional and there's Roth. The traditional IRA, all the adjustments are made at the end of the year when you file your taxes, but the theory is that you're investing money before taxes are taken out of your paycheck. Therefore, the taxes are calculated on a lower amount. And the money goes into, whether it's a savings account or whether it's a CD, a certificate of deposit, or whether it's a mutual fund. I do have a traditional IRA. It's in a mutual fund. Not a big surprise, right? And that money grows. So when I retire and I start to take money out of there, the money I put in wasn't taxed because it was taken out before taxes. And then my paycheck was taxed after that. So I got taxed less money because it calculated on a lower dollar amount. So when I take the money out, are they going to tax me? Yes. The money that grew, because it's not just what I put in there, you know, you got interest and dividends and it grew. I didn't get taxed on that. I'm going to get taxed on that as well. But the theory is that the taxes that you pay in retirement typically are at a lower percentage than the taxes that you're paying while you're working. So you are deferring your taxes to a lower amount. That's the theory for a traditional IRA. A Roth IRA is after tax. So you get your paycheck, you pay your taxes, you get your money, you buy food, you buy, you know, clothing, whatever, and you put some money in your Roth. And yes, I have a Roth. And yes, it's in a mutual fund, but it could be in a savings account. It could be in a CD. Mine's in a mutual fund. I've been taxed on the money that goes in there, and then it starts to grow. I've not been taxed on what is added, right? The dividends, the interest. And so when I go to retire and I start taking money out of the Roth, are they going to tax me again? No, I've already paid taxes on what's going on in there. But what about what grew? I didn't get taxed on that. Amazing. I don't get taxed on that afterwards either. So Roth is growing post-tax and tax-free, right? So what's growing is tax-free. It's like amazing. I mean, can you imagine that our US government actually is set this up for us? It's fantastic. Okay, how quick can your money grow? The years, well, the interest rate divided by years, or so 72 years if you're only getting 1%, right? If you're getting 1%, it's 72 divided by the interest rate gives you how many years to double your money. So the rule of 72, 72 divided by 1 is 72. 72 divided by 9 is 8. So if you're getting 9%, it's only going to get 8 years to double your money. Now that's if you're not putting anything else in there, obviously, right? But and how soon to get it to triple? Well, that's the rule of 115. 115 divided by the interest rate is going to get you how soon your money is going to triple. Okay, what if, let's say I have $100 and I'm depositing $100 into my investment every month, and I'm getting this investment that costs $100. And I do that month after month after month. And then all of a sudden the stock market plunges and that stuff that I've been buying at $100 is now worth $10. Oh, I'm not happy that my investments are worth $10 when I paid $100 for them. So obviously I'm going to just take all my barbells, pick them up and say, I'm not playing anymore, right? No. I take my $100 the next month and I buy again, because instead of buying one, I now buy 10. They're on sale. And next month I buy $100 worth, which is 10, and I buy and I buy and I buy. This is dollar cost averaging. You know that you have made wise investments in companies that are not going to disappear, that over the long term, they're going to go up either gradually or drastically, or kind of a wave going up there. You're investing, and when the price goes down, you're getting them on sale. So you get more of them for that same dollar. So when the stock market plunged in 2008, I was just really worried. I mean, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? But I didn't stop investing my same dollar amount every month in those same investments. And about 3 years later, the investments went boom. Because what I had done is I had purchased a lot of little seeds in all these trees. And so I planted seeds and I planted seeds and I planted seeds. And then all of those seeds grew up and bore fruit, right? That's dollar cost averaging. Okay, Adrian.
Yeah, we have about about 8 minutes left, and I want to make sure you get through your slides. But yeah, students are asking about like what's a good interest rate. So when you went over that rule of thumb, how much it's going to take time to your
What
interest and
is a good interest rate?
back.
Excellent question. And I get conflicting answers based on the investment advisors that I talk to. And it used to be, okay, pre-2008, they were saying, if you're not getting 10% or more on your investments, you have it in the wrong place. Now they're saying, hey, if you're getting 8%, good on you. But then there's still some others going, no, 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 that's not good enough. And so, wow, it's just all over the place. Before the crash in 2008, there were years where my investments averaged 34%. Wow, I should have known something was going to happen, right? During the down times, there were times when my investments averaged for a year a minus 14% because they had lost value. Buying them on sale. So I'm going to show you some examples, and these are based on 8% just because I had to use something. 8% seemed to be right in there where it was hopefully aggressive enough, but not really outside of the overall possibility. My personal investments over time, so from the time that I started, clear through them getting even the negative 14, 15%, clear up until now, I am almost at 8% average. Okay, so let me show you Be Wise Betty. Be Wise Betty is in a 401k where she puts 200 in and her employer matches it for 200. Fantastic. She did that every month. So every year that's 4,800 for her and her employer. Over 10 years, that's 48,000. Then she went to work someplace else, but she didn't pull the money out. She let it just continue to get 8%. Nice. Over time, when she finally retired at 60 years old, that was worth $520,000. So 8%, and the truth is you don't always get the same percentage, but we just have to do a calculation on something, right? So $500,000. She put in 48,000, and she's getting out $500,000. Sweet. Compare that to hardworking William. The first 10 years, he didn't put money in, but then at 36 to 60, he put in that 200 with the employers putting 200. So 36 to 60 is a lot of years. $400 per month, $4,800 per year. Over that time period, he and his employer put into his investment $120,000. And by the time he was ready to retire at 60, that became $381,000. Okay, so why did William make less? He put in a whole lot more. Well, Betty planted her seeds earlier, so her trees had time to grow up and bear fruit longer, 10 years longer. And those seeds produced more seeds, which produced more seeds, which produced more trees, more fruit. And so you can see that whole snowball effect, if I'm mixing my metaphors, sorry. So yes, Betty made $138,000 more than William, even though William put a whole lot more money in. But before you feel too sorry for William, take a look. He still tripled his money. William tripled his money. So we want you to be Betty, but William is okay. And what if you're going to be start early Eddie? 20 years old. Now, at 20, I was still at Fresno State. I was, I was only halfway through Fresno State. So I didn't even have a full-time job that allowed me to invest. But what if you did at 20 years old? It's not a 401k. Nobody is matching money. He's just putting that 170 in, and he never increased it. It's just 170 every month from age 20 to 65. And he's averaging 8% compounding quarterly. By the time, oops, where'd he go? Go back. By the time he is 65 years old, that grew to 945, almost $1 million. So start as early as you can. Don't make yourself crazy if you don't have that job yet, but you get that job and you start investing. And please do more than the $50 that I did when I was 30. Please, right? You can do this. I mean, all of you get that job and you think that you need that brand new car, and suddenly you have a car payment of $450 plus your insurance of another $200 plus the gas and maintenance. Okay, well, how about if we take a step back just a little bit on that and we start investing for our future? Adrian, what questions do we have?
Okay. Specific websites to look at different stocks? You mentioned E-Trade earlier, but is there any other
I
website?
mean, MSN has some websites out there. E-Trade has some websites out there. I
Yeah.
just, there's just a whole plethora of them out there.
Yeah. And then they're asking about like who we talk about starting a 401k.
Your employer, actually, those are through your employment. So your employer either has that available or they don't. And so when you go to work for somebody, they'll tell you, oh, we have a 401k investment option. Typically that starts either 3 months or 6 months after you've been there. And, please invest. And quite often it's percentage. So it's very typical for employers to say, you put in 3% of your paycheck, we're going to put in 3%. Or you put in 4%, we're going to put in 4%. I am really, really spoiled where I work. They put in a little bit more than that. Therefore, I have always put in, at least what they did. Now, at this point, I'll tell you honestly, I'm putting in 12% of my paycheck because I started late and I would like to retire someday.
Yeah.
So I have to
Can we be students asking, can we invest even though we don't have a job?
Oh, yeah. If you've got the money, you can invest.
Yep. And then they want to look at Wise Betty again, the example about Wise Betty. I don't know what they're
Sure.
looking at exactly, but
Be wise, Betty. Let me back
Wise
up. There's Be Wise Betty. So yeah, over the course of 10 years, she was doing $200 a month with the employer matching $200 a month. And typically over 10 years, you would increase it, right? But she just for the sake of calculations, I kept it simple. So that's 48,000 over 10 years. Okay, that 48,000 on the 11th year continued to earn 8%, even though she didn't put anything into it. And on the 12th year, it still earned 8%, but not just on the 48,000, it earned 48,000 plus, whatever she's earned in dividends and interest to that point. So it's been growing, and you don't earn just on what you put in there. It's compounding, meaning that you earn money on top of what you earned last month. You earn money on top of what you earned last year. So if you earned $1,000 last year over what you put into it, then that $1,000 gets in that balance, and they do the calculation on the 8% on the whole balance. So compounding is great.
Yep, I agree. Well, I want to be aware of your time, Mike, and everyone's time listening in. We had a lot of people on actually. They're kind of jumping off because they probably have to go.
Right.
But put on your last slide again if they want to contact you or contact EECU, I guess. Right here, you can contact their advisors and You
Yes.
can always email out to me. People are asking, they want to obviously watch this recording again. So we're posting it, we're recording it right now. We're going to post it on our YouTube channel for the Career Center's website. So go to the Career Development Center at Fresno State, and you can have access to that. Probably give us a couple of days so we can make sure we post it on there properly. And then I want to, for everybody listening, if you can really quick, I just put a link on the chat. It's our survey of today's webinar to give feedback about what you thought about Mike's presentation, as well as the content you learned, and then maybe some general comments at the end as well. That'd be fantastic too. We have so many other questions, Mike. It's unfortunate we won't be able to get to them. We're definitely gonna have to invite you back to present to us. Oh, did you want to do a quick summary real quick, Mike, or you okay?
I'm just going to let you know, you can email me questions.
Okay.
Mike J at myeecu.org.
Perfect. Thank you. And then just to let everyone know listening, we're going to have Mike back in January. Actually, he's going to be talking about car buying. I believe it's car buying. So we'll have him on to talk about that for everyone. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar. Bye-bye.